Hey Sherpa Network. Today we're joined by Rand Fishkin for our Founders Series. Rand is founder of Moz.com, SparkToro.com, and most recently, author of Lost and Founder. Rand is considered one of the top experts in the world on SEO, and today he talks with us about domains and SEO, the convergence. You need to hear every minute. It gets better and better. Coming up next. Enjoy. First, serious about online trading? Secure your funds, keep your merchandise safe, and use a company that keeps the buyer and seller protected the whole way through. That's escrow.com. Payments you can trust. Finally, if you're a domain name investor, don't you have unique legal needs that require domain name technical know-how and industry experience? That's why you need Stephen Lieberman of Greenberg and Lieberman or Jason Schaefer of Esquire.com. Go search for Jason Schaefer or Stephen Lieberman on DomainSherpa, watch their interviews, and you can see for yourself that they can clearly explain issues, can help you with buy-sell agreements, deal with website content issues and UDRP actions, and even help you write your website terms and conditions. Stephen Lieberman and Jason Schaefer are the lawyers to call for internet legal issues. See for yourself at Esquire.com or APlegal.com. Let's get started. One of the core questions in our industry, the domain industry, is how domains affect SEO or how domains affect marketing, and most marketing these days are done via SEO. As long as I've been in the domain industry, one of the leading questions has been, do domains impact your SEO or your marketing value? Today, we have one of the world's leading SEO experts, Rand Fishkin, here to discuss exactly these questions. Welcome, Rand. Thanks for coming.
Tess, thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks for coming on, Rand.
And Drew, we're delighted to have you as well. I know as founder of Media Options, you so often assist startups in their domain name search, and that's what we're here to get some serious advice from Rand about. So welcome.
Thank you.
So Rand, I doubt you need any introduction. I got like a 30-second blurb on you.
Okay. Well, you can read 15 seconds of it.
Oh, okay. Founder of Moz.com. You call yourself a software firm, which, I just think is interesting. This isn't 15 seconds. Because you're building software for marketers and SEO, and you're still in Seattle. Your newest company, SparkToro.com, also a marketing firm. And what caught me the most that I don't often hear in introductions, Rand, is transparency. Transparency everywhere. Even your favorite charity, GiveDirectly.com. I checked it out. I have never seen a charity like that. You want to say something for a minute?
Yeah, sure. So I do a lot of speaking and a lot of events and stuff for all sorts of folks. And I always ask for a donation to be made to Give Directly. What I love about them is they have this very contrarian sort of view of how to make a charity work. They basically give money directly to poor people with no strings attached. They do follow up and sort of watch how that money is used and then statistically record it, but they have no restrictions. If you want to go, to your dealer and buy marijuana, great. If you want to go to the store and buy ice cream, fine. If you want to invest in renovating your house or in your child's education, great. And it's almost always those latter two people put money into when they're poor. And I love the fact that no one believes that's the case. People think, right? People have this foolish, hateful prejudice that, poor people waste their money. When in fact, something like 99% of them use it extremely wisely, right?
Yeah.
And invest in things that
they don't have money to waste.
They don't have money to waste. And when they get extra money, they put it to vastly better use than probably you or I. So it's really exciting to see. I love the company, and they're very transparent with their statistics about, here's how much was spent on this and this and this. So I'm kind of honored that I get to do things like this. And then, and do events and give directly, gets all this money, and then it goes straight to people who use it more wisely than I do on my, $15 vegan scoop of ice cream, because Seattle's prices are insane.
Well, I brought it up for a reason, Rand, because I think it really reflects who you are. The trust, the dignity that it gives someone to say, I trust you to make a decision how you'll spend this money, and the transparency of seeing. I just went on the website and it's got like the latest thing that says, hey, I just got your money. I bought a new goat. I did not notice any that said I spent it on marijuana. They all seemed like pretty darn useful. I don't know.
So this is the thing. They have not yet started a program in Seattle. When they do, then there'll be lots of marijuana-related spending.
Well, just a quick surprise. This wasn't a plug for Give Directly, but Lost and Founder, fantastic book. And our first person in the Sherpa network to comment that they've made a donation to givedirectly.com will receive a copy of this book. So I thought you would like that.
I do. I have a history of generous donations from our viewers to charities. So everybody who submits domain names to be reviewed on the show has to make a donation to the Fred Hutch Cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Very, very cool. I love that. And I really appreciate that you folks are doing that. I think that's wonderful.
Thanks, Rand. So why do we have you on our show, right? Because you've been on like every show. But I think this is what it comes down to. I think we have a real connection. I read this Forbes article, if I may quote, in November of 2004, after much internal wrangling face, Fishkin decided to open the virtual doors to a blog called SEO Moz out of sheer frustration with the, quote, opaque, secretive world of SEO and the lack of knowledge available on the web back in the early 2000s. DomainSherpa is the exact same thing for domain names, domain name investment, domain name choices. It is so opaque. Mostly deals are done in very private settings, and there's very little openness about how deals get done or why corporations make the choices they make. And that's why DomainSherpa exists, for the exact same transparency, education, growth of an ecosystem. So I'm glad that we have that in common. Yeah. So your book, Lost and Founder, fantastic book. What I really like your approach, and it's funny because you say you're not a millennial, but you look like one.
Very kind of you. You can't see all the white in the beard, but
I shaved my white off.
I barely missed the cutoff. I'm Carter administration, not Reagan. So.
Who? No, just kidding. But I really like the beginning of your book. You say that being an entrepreneur is like getting a new video game and you die in round one. Like no one expects not to die in round one. No one thinks they suck because they died in round one. And what do? You get the cheats and you talk with friends. Do the same with entrepreneurship. I think that's why you specialize in tools that grow marketing, right? You're sharing the cheats.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the convergence of domain name search or the domain name choice with marketing, and some SEO questions, of course, sprinkled in. So in your book, now talk about jumping to the sheets, right? At the very end of the book, you say that the afterward, right, is like, what are the cheats for next time? Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, maybe I skipped and read that first and then I read everything else.
That actually works perfectly. I think that's smart.
Thank you. Called Smart by Rand Fishkin. I'm putting that on my LinkedIn. So cheat codes for next time. Really, one of the first things that you say is about why how to choose a brand name. You have 4 very specific points. And I feel that these have, choosing a brand name and choosing a domain name are not always synonymous, but mostly, right? Let's talk about that. You want to give us an overview?
Yeah, in the article that you published just, I think, a few days ago, I think after you stated the four whatever criteria, you said basically you don't have your .com, you're irrelevant. You need to have your .com in most cases. Which
I want to be clear. So I believe that's true when you have a certain wide audience that you need to reach, right?
Particularly consumer focused.
Sorry?
Particularly if it's consumer focused.
Yeah, absolutely, right? I think that, inside the domain name world, inside the SEO world, inside the technology world, we're extremely familiar with, there's all these new TLDs that I could be buying, and lots of people are putting their domains on creative ones, but you miss out on a bunch of different things if you don't go with kind of one of the classics. And to be frank, .com is the best of those options. Yeah. And those include things like, when people see it, they know they can go immediately to the website. Mm-hmm. That actually means quite a bit, and it becomes more shareable. So when someone says, when someone tells you a name, your ability to cognitively process that, which is called processing fluency, and then remember and recall and share it with someone else, or use it yourself to, go to that destination, or recall that brand when you're in a store shopping, or whatever it is, that memory is actually incredibly tough. The first time you hear about something, it's really hard to remember something. The second time, even the third time, I'm sure all of you have had that experience, right? Of, hey, we're at the grocery store. What was that really good brand of coconut milk that Bob mentioned to us last week? I don't know. I can't remember. Yeah. Yes, that problem, right, gets amplified across, this wide audience that you're trying to reach, and therefore, .com is essentially the domain name cheat code, if you will, to end around that processing fluency and give yourself the best shot to be remembered and associated, and that does a lot of things for you. It also means, generally speaking, that more people who want to link to you, right, because they want to remember you, they had to, oh, Tess and I had a great interview, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and now she's launching her new startup, and oh, I should link to that in my blog. And what was the name of Tess's new startup? Wait,
or even worse, you put the link in, but you link to the .com and she's on the .io.
Yes.
Which
yes,
happens exactly. all the time. We have so many backlinks on our domain names, which are, just stagnant domain names,
yep.
which are coming from like major publications who thought they were linking to a company, but actually they got the domain wrong.
Yep. And that those links carry so much weight in Google, right? So much weight in terms of direct traffic when they get those mentions. And when someone lands on this domain is available for sale instead of a Tessa's new startup, you want to pull your hair out, right? It's a terrible feeling. So there's a reason that the .com generally costs a premium. It's because it really is worth that premium. And that's Tess, you pointed out, that's one of the recommendations I had in the book.
Yeah. I always like to say, I basically spend all of my time trying to explain why somebody should pay some exorbitant price for the .com that I'm trying to sell them, or qualifying to, if our client is the buyer, trying to qualify to them why they, how they can justify paying the price that a seller wants. And I always say that if you own anything except your bang on best fit.com, your brand requires further explanation to anybody that you want to tell it to. There are literally thousands of companies, maybe tens of thousands of companies out there with a lot of money called Yellow something, Yellow Bus, Yellow Pages, Yellow Marketing, Yellow Group, Yellow, it goes on and on and on and on.
Submarine, I heard about.
Yeah. Every single one of those companies on earth today will now never own Yellow.com. And they will always continuously have to give further explanation about their brand because they can't just simply say we are Yellow, because there's only one Yellow.com. And everybody else needs further explanation.
Yep.
Yeah. So in terms, beyond domains, just in naming a company, you mentioned, once it's heard, it's remembered. It doesn't get confused with something or someone that it's not. And And also in your book, you mentioned, something like Amazon or Google, that it can be anything. And I thought there I would throw in the story. Do you know that Amazon, originally he was naming it Abracadabra, or after Abracadabra, he named it Cadabra. And his own attorney kept thinking he was saying cadaver. Awkward, not the association you want. So, doesn't get confused with a dead body. Has high...
I have this thing, Tessa, called the Barista Test, right? So you know how a lot of baristas, when you go to get coffee or whatever you're doing, right? But they ask you for your email address because they plug that in to send you the receipt, right? And sometimes you do it yourself, sometimes they ask you for it. And so my barista test is, you say the name of your domain once. I'm rand@sparktoro.com. If they don't have to ask, you win.
Yeah.
Right? If they don't ask again, they've obviously never heard of SparkToro, right? But if they don't have to ask me, how do you spell that? Or they don't have to say, sorry, what was that? And I can tell you, my original domain name, which was SEOMOZ, right? It was shorter, it had the keyword in there, but if I said, I'm rand@seomoz.com or .org, we had both on, but that never worked. Never worked.
I remember in, 2006 when I first got into domains, SEOmoz was one of the first places I went, but I didn't know, because I'm reading everything, not talking to anyone. Podcasts weren't a thing for me.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if it was SEOmoz or SEOMOZ, because,
I got phone calls from people like, is this Shalmoz? Are you Seomoz?
Shalmoz, you could open an Asian.
By the way, for those in our audience who don't live in Seattle, a barista is the person who makes your coffee.
Oh my. There's no one who doesn't know that.
I'm just joking.
I mean, maybe in 1992, that was when we were leading coffee culture in Seattle. Now everybody's into it.
Now you're leading startup culture fueled by the coffee.
Yeah.
Okay. So
couldn't help myself.
Let's jump on. So I read this Databox interview also, and someone asked you what is the asset businesses should most invest in, and you gave a longer answer, but your first sentence was, for most web-based businesses, it's still your website. I added the emphasis, but it is your website. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, you didn't say Twitter, Facebook, etc. What are your thoughts on social media platforms? Algorithm changes. They can, I saw the Twitter post you had a few days ago with Snapchat and, was it Twitter?
Yeah.
And their market cap is the opposite of what it used to be. Talk to me for a minute there about how those algorithms can affect your business and why you want to still engage with them, but how to figure out how to balance engaging with them and engaging on your own website.
Sure. So I don't think this is much of a competition. When you build your website, you own the user experience, you own the technology platform, you own any information that you can or are allowed to track and collect and store and then use for your marketing activities later. You get to test and improve things. You do not get to do that with any other platform. I don't care if it's Google My Business, right? Where you appear in Google's local results, or whether it's the knowledge graph or knowledge panel on the site of Google, or whether it's your Twitter or Facebook account or your LinkedIn account or your Medium page. You don't own and control that user experience. You don't own and control that data. And we have seen over the last 10 years, those social networks essentially use this strategy of, hey, we're going to help you amplify your reach. We're going to help you build your business. We're going to help you grow. And so everyone, goes to them and says, great, Facebook, you take care of me. Great, Yelp, you take care of me. Great, LinkedIn, you take care of me. And then what happens over time is that those Facebook says, oh, we're pulling back on the reach of businesses to give people more personal posts. And, reach went, 6 or 7 years ago, went from an average of 20% down to like 7%. And everyone freaked out. Today, you would give your arm and leg for 7% reach on Facebook. You're lucky to get 0.5%, right?
Yeah.
1% is considered excellent. If you can reach 1% of your audience with a post, you're like cheering in your chair as a social media marketer. And that's insane. That's insane, because 100% of people who make it to your website, your brand is in front of them. You own and control that experience. And so I think making the website the center of all your activities and having any of these other channels essentially be a distribution and broadcast channel, not a home, not a place where you build your marketing, but rather a place where you do your marketing.
A part of your funnel, so to speak.
Yeah, and at the very top. It should be used at the top of the funnel to drive people to your website. I will take any day, 100 people getting to my website versus, LinkedIn sort of, oh, but we can do further qualification here. And, you can drive them to your page. And then when they get to your employment section, or they get to your product section, they'll be more qualified customers. So send them here instead. Forget that. Don't listen to them. You should make your website your home.
Yeah. Thank you. There are a lot of questions about it, if you get banned, blacklisted, shadow banned, all these different things that can happen either on a social media platform or with a domain name. One of the first questions that I know Drew was asking earlier was, if you buy a domain on a blacklist, what can you do to fix that?
Sure. So you're talking about like an SEO blacklist or a Google blacklist, or it's been penalized somehow by Facebook.
Yeah, it's got some kind of handicap.
Yep. So all of those are recoverable, and in fact, seeing a change of domain, owner is a good way to start that. Well, to make that process easier. But I'm not going to lie, I have seen and had experiences with plenty of folks who have bought domains that have been penalized in the past. Google used to be much worse about this. I think they're actually much better now. Facebook can still sometimes be bad about it. Twitter doesn't ban very many domains, right? If you want to be, well, not in Germany, but right. But if you want to be a crazy Nazi, like Twitter will allow your insanity for now, at least. We'll see if that changes. The central point, though, is that you should be taking action. All of these, whatever it is, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, even Tumblr, have these protocols that you can go through to say, oh, my domain, had some problem with it, and I want to repair that. My best advice is, before you buy, because this can be part of your price negotiation, right? Before you buy, go post it to every network out there. Right? Go post a link to this and set, whatever. You can create a new account and, just post it and see whether you can see it with your other accounts. Make sure that you can. So, if I buy, Rand and Tess's new startup.info and, I post that to Tumblr and I see, oh, actually, gosh, I now can't see any of these posts. That indicates to me that I should go back to the seller and say, hey, it looks like you're banned on Tumblr, and, that's going to be a little bit of a hit on price, probably not too much, right? But if it was Facebook, that might be a much bigger one, because I'm going to have to go through this process, sort of like buying a house that has some property line issue, dispute, and you have to go sort it out with the neighbors and the courts. You tend to pay less for those houses. Same story here.
Yeah, fair enough. And what if you're on the Google's blacklist?
Yeah, so Google has the same thing. The frustrating part about Google is that you will need to own the domain name first, or at least have access to Google Search Console, so that you can go through Google's process of, requesting removal. I will say Google has gotten much better about this. They're both much faster at dealing with those when they come up, and they also, it tends to be the case that Google very rarely bans entire domains anymore, and they're much more likely to simply remove the value from links that point to a domain, right? So if you had a bunch of manipulative links pointing to a domain. They were, at one point maybe helping in rankings, and then Google figured out this is all spam. Used to be for a long time there, Google would sort of ban or penalize your website for getting those links. Now, instead, what they're doing is discounting the value of those links. That's not to say it never happens.
So getting spammy links. So I mean, that was always a big point of discussion. Yeah. I was in a negotiation was like, well, look, I'm looking at the link profile on this domain, and look, there's 60 super spammy links. 60 might be even low. Sometimes it was thousands.
Yep.
Super spammy links pointing to this domain. It's it's going to be virtually impossible to get them removed. And Google would actually not just discount the value of those links, but actually penalize you for the link. And I always found that to be a very strange thought, because if I was a competitor and I wanted to be nefarious, I would simply go get a bunch of spammy links and point it to my competitor so that they get penalized.
Yeah.
And you don't have any control over who points a link to you. And so I understand on the surface what they were trying to do, but at the heart of things, I know people who suffered from competitors doing some nefarious acts and pointing spammy domains at them for Google to penalize them. Is that no longer the case? They're now just basically discounting the links?
Let's see. So I want to be...
Or let's preface that with, as far as you know, because nobody can actually see inside Google's black box.
Yeah, right. So that is absolutely one important caveat. The second one is most of the time, the vast majority of the time, maybe even overwhelming majority of the time, now they are discounting those links rather than penalizing you for having them. That being said, in the cases where they are penalizing you for having them, or in the case where you're worried about that, claiming your Google Search Console connection will allow you to do what's called a disavow on any links that point to you, and that disavow will essentially remove those links' value in Google's eyes, but it will also remove any penalty that those links pass to you. Generally speaking, like I said, in the overwhelming majority of cases now, you don't have to worry about that too much. But if you are worried, there's a few really great spam experts. My one newsletter I would urge you to subscribe to and potentially personally get in touch with is Marie Haynes. Well, actually, I think I mentioned in the book because we worked on a spam score at Moz. And Marie basically tracks all of this stuff and does a ton of unpenalization. Another great guy in that field is Alan Bleiweiss. And the two of them, both do the same sorts of things where they'll, audit a project and help you get out of the penalty box and walk you through that. But Google does have a good process for re-inclusion and for that request, as well as for disavowing spam if you connect your Google Search Console. So one thing you could consider if you're buying a domain name is to say, give me a login to the Google Search Console, right? Because Google will give you inside Google Search Console, it'll show, hey, we have penalized this domain, right? Or we've banned your domain, we found suspicious activity, here are the links we know about to your site, right? And you can say, yeah, okay, if you'll give me a month to clean this up, I will pay full price. If you're not willing to give me that month to clean it up, I want to be, I want a 20% discount here because I'm going to have to go through that process, and I don't know if it'll work. So that's a very reasonable thing that you could ask a seller for in a negotiation.
Okay. So you said, mariehaynes.com. Yep. I see is her site. You mentioned a gentleman?
Yeah, Alan Bleiweiss' site. Let me see if he's
okay.
Website
and
is,
then I want to know.
alanbleiweiss.com.
What is it?
alanbleiweiss.com. So it's ALAN and then BLEIWEISS.
Okay. Alan.
Wow, I actually spelled it right from the first time you said it. I'm pretty impressed.
Only because you're in Germany.
So educated, so efficient.
You had a question, Drew. No. Okay. Well, I wanted to ask, where would you look up the link profile? Is that a tool that you provide at SparkToro? Or where would you recommend that?
So historically, for a frustrating, few years, my answer was one of two places, a company called ahrefs.com, 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 like the HTML link command, and the other one is majestic.com, Majestic SEO. Both of them have had big, broad link indices. Moz also had a link index, but it tended not to get deep into the world of spammy links, which could be very frustrating for folks. And so now, as of just the beginning of May, actually, Moz has a new tool called Link Explorer that I worked on for a few years just before my departure there. And that is even larger, an even bigger set of links and a larger index than what those competitors I mentioned have. And so that's a potentially very good option. All three of them can provide you with information. I like but don't love Google's free link data in Search Console. I like it because it tends to be very accurate and up to date. I don't love it because it tends to be very incomplete and intentionally incomplete. So whereas Ahrefs or Majestic or Moz's Link Explorer are showing you all the links that they know about to the website or page you requested, Google is intentionally showing you a sample of the links. They know about more, they're just not showing them to you. And so that can be a frustrating experience to go through because you have this sort of like, wait, but what about this link exists? Does Google know about it? Yeah, they know about it. They're just not showing it to you in the console. So I like that a lot. Moz does also have a new spam score that is pretty darn good for sorting. I like that. There's also a tool called, oh my gosh.
On the topic of the spam score, because it's something I use on a daily basis when I'm evaluating a domain. Can you give me some specific like numbers? Like sometimes I'll see a 2 or 3 and I'm kind of like, okay, 2 or 3 out of 17. That's okay.
Yeah. So that was the old spam score, which I had a lot of frustrations. Like 2 out of 17. What the heck does that mean? No, yes. So the new spam score for Moz is 0 out of 100. And it's a percentile score, and that percentile score essentially has a very clear connection to Moz crawled a few 100 million domains and then searched for all of them in Google and looked at which ones were penalized or banned. And then looked at a whole bunch of features and said, okay, if you see these, I think there's like 40-ish features that Moz looks at, but if we see these features in these sorts of ways, about 12% of websites we observed with those features were banned or penalized by Google. So your score is 12%, right? Now, 12%, that's not high risk. That's quite low, right? That only 12% of sites with my features were penalized or banned. That's not a big deal. It's even better to be 1%, but you don't care too much about your own site. You know whether you're spamming or not.
Yeah.
Right? So if your own spam score of 12% is meaningless, right? Not meaningless, but you shouldn't care too much about it. It's not very actionable. I wouldn't jump through a bunch of hoops to get from 12% to 2%. Why? You know you're spamming or you're not spamming. I would, however, highly recommend it when you sort your links, right? So if you go look at a link, oh, I'm thinking about buying this domain, right? I really like randomtestsnewstartup.com.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, randomtestsnewstartup.com has 5,000 links. Let me sort them in order from most spam to least spam. And I'm going to look at all the sites that link to, our new startup, and I'm going to see, oh, these, 40 up here have like above a 50% spam score. That means they're more likely than not to be spam. What? I'm just going to export those and I'm going to upload it as a disavow file to Google so that Google knows that I didn't intend anything shady, because before I make this domain purchase, I want Google to, consider this a really clean domain. Great. That's a perfect use for spam score. It's great for sorting the links that point to you.
Yeah.
For your own site, if you've been running it for a while, if you're spam or not. Yeah. So even if you have a 60% spam score, if you're not spamming, okay, you're in the 40% that wasn't penalized and banned.
Although maybe somebody's spoofing you.
Yeah, right, or someone's doing something sketchy. Yeah, you could look around and see like, hey, what's causing that? And is there something I should go fix?
So I mean, if you had to give a number and you're looking at the spam score and you say, you know, you're evaluating a domain.
Oh, like, do I even pay any attention? So I probably don't pay any attention at all under 10%.
Okay.
You know, a 9%, you know, 9% of domains were penalized or banned. That's that, you know, nothing.
Yeah.
And then I don't really worry until I see it's over 25 or 30%.
Yeah.
And then if I see that it's over 50%, I'm kind of like, you know, that's flip a coin odds that this is penalized or banned. I don't like that one bit.
Not at all.
Yeah. Good to know. Thanks. So how about exact match domains, right? We, in our industry, we call them EMDs.
This is the big one. This is what you're on here for. This was all just a tease. Now we really want to know. What do the exact match domains do for SEO?
Yeah. Sorry, Tess, did you?
No,
yeah,
I think that's good enough. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about EMDs. So there are still some small advantages from a pure SEO standpoint of owning a domain name that is exactly, exactly a match for the word or phrase of the thing that you do or offer. However,
that people are searching.
Yes. However, there are also considerable drawbacks, and you should be mindful of both. So I think a really good example would be something like books.com. So books.com, it is short, easy to pronounce, easy to say and spell and remember. When you hear it, you're like, oh, books.com. Oh, you must be competing with Amazon. Oh, we are, but we actually do used books and rare books and really interesting things with, you know, authors directly. Oh, cool. Okay, I'm going to check you out. Books.com. That sounds really good. And there are SEO benefits to that, right? Those are sort of branding benefits and memory benefits, processing fluency benefits, and SEO benefits. Everyone who links to you will call you books.com. And when they link to your website, even if they just type it out, that link will look to Google like books, B-O-O-K-S, right? So that anchor text, the anchor text in the link will pass some linguistic value, right?
That's interesting.
Some value to Google that says, hey, this website over here says this website over here is about books.
Mm-hmm.
So that can be helpful as well, to the degree that anyone still searches books on Google and doesn't actually just go to Amazon. But we'll ignore that problem for a minute. Where it gets more problematic is where you say, oh, you know what, we offer rare Italian collectors books, and we own rareitaliancollectorsbooks.com. Really? So there's problems on the branding side. That's a long domain name. It's hard to remember. Is it Italian rare books.com? No, rare Italian collectors books.com. Okay, all right, good. Right? So memorizing that, remembering it, recalling it, typing it in, all of those things are frustrating. When the barista has to type in, you're kidding me. Rare Italian collectors books, just sitting there for forever. Okay, that's one problem. The second problem that's more frustrating is that inside of Google is, let's say you do rank very well. Lots of people are searching for, a few people are searching for, but they're ready to pay a lot of money to buy something from you when they search for rareitaliancollectorsbooks.com or rare Italian collectors books. You might rank number one, but when they see your domain in the listing, you look sketchy. You look sketchy because people have been trained over the last 20 years of the internet that domains that are generic keyword matches tend to be spammy, sketchy, manipulative, not high quality, not very trustworthy compared to brand names, right? So, I mean, as weird as it sounds, you would probably do better with yellow.com, right? If you branded yourself as yellow.com, we are the source for rare books around the world. Our brand, we are yellow, and you have some beautiful branding, and people can sort of remember that. They don't have another brand association with it. Fantastic. That's probably going to work much better for you. Your click-through rate will be higher, your conversion rate will be higher, and that will probably mean that you actually rise in the rankings even above the exact match rare Italian collectors books.com. And that's why you see that over the past 15 years, the percent of domains that all sorts of indices track. Moz's index tracks it, right? Our keyword index tracks it. SEMrush, SEMrush tracks it. Ahrefs tracks it. All these folks, you can see that the percent of exact match domains that rank highly in Google on page 1 has steadily gone down. And so that's sort of the story with exact match domain names. Sometimes they can be great, especially if they're short and memorable and easy to brand. Mm-hmm. If they're longer, if they're more convoluted, if they look sketchy in the results, I would bias to a brand.
So I don't want to say I'm going to be contrarian here, but I think that it's topic specific. So if I'm searching for a new car and I see usedcarreviews.com, it's probably not where I'm going to go because I'm aware of Kelley Blue Book. I'm aware of Simon. I'm aware of, Auto Trader, and there's lots of brands out there that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
If I'm going to search for new kitchen cabinets, maybe you're an expert on the topic. I'm not. I don't know a single brand. Well, I do because I just got done modeling a house. But prior to that, I had no clue. I couldn't have told you a single brand in the kitchen cabinetry market. And so if I saw kitchencabinets.com, I would actually click on that because I'd say, okay, boom, that's what I'm looking for, kitchen cabinets. I think in the example you gave, and obviously we're just pulling something out of blue sky, rare Italian collectorsbooks.com, because I guess on the topic of books, I also would probably, but if it was some other very niche topic like that, where there's no strong branding in the space, there's no familiar household brand, I think that those exact match domain names probably carry more weight. People probably have a higher tendency to click on them, a higher click-through rate. But again, I'm only guessing.
So I think, Andrew, you are absolutely right. I 100% agree with you. And I think it's important to think one step ahead of that, which is there's no one who's well-known in kitchen cabinets. There's no one who's well-known in rare Italian collector's items. I don't want to be the exact match domain name that over time becomes the one that no one cares about because some brands build up in the space. I want to be the one with the potential to be the brand that everyone's heard of in the space.
Yeah.
That is very difficult. There are so few companies that have actually taken the exact match domain name and become the brand in their space. And I think that is because brands that carry different kinds of associations from the verbal linguistic ones we already have are more easily transmittable, are more memorable, carry these kinds of powers. And so, for example, my new startup, I could have called it, publicationdiscoverer.com.
Yeah.
That's probably available, or I could have bought it from someone. It describes what we do, right? Someone would have been like, oh, okay. I mean, maybe you still have to check it out. But I didn't want to be that. I know that there's no one in the, there's no big brand in the software space of how do I discover the publications and people that influence my audience world, right? That's it's just too niche. But I wanted to be the brand or have the potential to be the brand rather than being the exact match that might get some early SEO benefit, some early ranking benefit because of that linguistic connection, but then later on be susceptible to another brand coming into the space and dominating. So that tends to be my bias.
I think that really summarizes it. I think you're both right. There's a different time and place for an exact match domain. Are you looking to, first of all, what is your space? Is it a frequent purchase? What is the brand saturation in your space or the brand expectation? I know Microsoft did 2 fascinating studies on exact match domains many years ago, right? But their main caveat was if there were already a lot of brand saturation or not. Kitchen cabinets, Yeah, there. I've read this study because didn't we like cabinets.com or something? I read this study that most people, even after they've bought their kitchen cabinets, which is one of the most expensive purchases in their home, they can't remember what brand it is. They remember, I got it at Home Depot or whatever.
Yeah.
Blinds.com. They took those early SEO advantages and then they sold to Home Depot. Diapers.com took those advantages. And even though there's a lot of brand saturation, they knew that people were looking for options and were less interested in the branding than in the pricing in that arena. And then they built it up and sold to Amazon. So
price sensitivity is probably also a good criteria mechanism to caveat whether or not an exact match domain is going to be effective in a particular category.
Yeah. Interesting.
More price sensitivity, probably better opportunity for exact match domain, like insurance, perhaps.
On average, for sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to just quickly, one area where there seems to be both a meteoric rise of brands and exact match domain wars is in the mattress space, this direct-to-consumer mattress space.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like mind-boggling. I couldn't even tell you how many clients in that space, all searching for the same stuff. And how do you reconcile that? That is there still a strategy for both substantiating your brand in a space, trying to saturate your brand into a space, at the same time chasing that exact match domain strategy for SEO, and creating these satellite sites, sister sites? Is that still a strategy?
It is still a strategy that some people pursue. I don't love it because I think it is actually taking time and energy and attention away from your primary marketing efforts, which generally building up one brand name and one domain name in the long term do the best. And you can see that almost every very large company operates that way. That being said, the mattress space is a good one is a good one to talk about because it is right now experiencing something of a combination of two things. One, a gold rush, right? So as people are getting comfortable with buying mattresses online, and these are high purchase point items, and there's lots of margin in the space, and there's lots of potential producers, right? And there's tons of capital, a lot of private equity capital, a lot of venture capital that have gone in or are going into that space. So because of that, you get this weird world of crazy amounts of competition, tons of people blowing tons of money trying to become the brand in the space. And in a few years, it'll settle out, right? In a few years, I don't know how many, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 10, maybe it's only 2. There will be 3 or 4 winners, and there'll be 47 companies that spent tens of millions of dollars and no longer exist. And maybe they're acquired, and maybe they just shut down. But anytime you see a space like that, I would be careful of taking the lessons of what's going on in that type of a space and extrapolating it out to a broader one, because you can misinterpret sort of how applicable those lessons are.
Mm-hmm.
That's really solid advice. Yeah. Did you want to ask something else, Drew? Or
no. That was pretty much to the point. And that was sort of what I had thought, is that online mattress shopping is having its moment, and it's not necessarily.
I was sure you were going to say Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, right? Which is another space where there's just insane amounts of domain activity, tons of people investing in building a brand, a bunch of people building exact match domains, and in a few years it will all shake out, and either cryptocurrency will be a thing or it won't be, and a few of these companies will be interesting and successful, and the overwhelming majority will not. We don't need 1,700 types of cryptocurrency, for sure.
What's really fascinating in the crypto world, though, is the hyperspeed at which things get flushed out. It's at least 10x the speed at which everything else in every other industry which I've seen basically is every industry on earth, because like I like to say, all roads lead back to domain names. And so really we've dealt with everybody.
Yeah, I think, well, so you have a ton of short-term speculative capital. And anytime you get lots of short-term speculative capital, you're going to have incredible amounts of turnover, right? So, in the 1980s, right, and early 90s, the savings and loan business was the same way, right? You had tons of savings and loans opening up all over the place, right? Like, small towns in Iowa would have 4 savings and loans. What the hell's going on here, right? And then, of course, regulation and greed and fraud brought the whole thing to a collapse. And
So, the new thing right now in domains, of course, are the new gTLDs. It's recently been in the news, vacation.rentals and home.loans are doing really well in SEO and very quickly. Do you think that's a sign of things to come? Do you think that's more likely a temporary bump? What do you think there?
So to the degree that those domain names are benefiting from essentially having both keywords in the domain and TLD, as well as all the anchor text that points to them, especially when the deal, there's a big domain deal and lots of people link to the site, and then that gets lots of press talking about it.
So just to point this out for our Sherpa network, what you're saying is just like books.com, the anchor text in any link is going to include the keyword books. The anchor text in vacation.rentals is getting vacation and rentals. Is that what you're saying right there?
Yes-ish.
Okay, keep going on where you were going. I just wanted to...
Yeah, no, I appreciate that clarification. That is an extremely important point. So Google has said, no, we don't. No, we don't count the TLD extension as an anchor, as part of the anchor text, and that that's not how we treat it, except in cases where someone is looking for the domain itself, right? So if someone were to type into Google vacation.rentals, or randantest.startup or something like that, right? Then Google thinks, oh wait, now let's consider what the TLD, and the anchor text there is. I actually don't believe Google. I think that sometimes they are interpreting the TLD extension as part of the anchor text. What I do believe, what I think the statement should be is, we're trying and thinking about in the future, probably mostly discounting it.
Yeah.
Right? That is what it means. And that's an important message if you're a domainer, a buyer or a seller, right? If you're a seller, that means now might be a great time to sell. And if you're a buyer who has short-term interests, now might be a great time to buy and leverage that. And if you have long-term interests, now might be a better time to buy something else.
Yeah.
So that's how I'd interpret Google.
I think that's a great summary that probably is in line with my view.
Yeah. And on top of that, if you're looking to sell soon, or you want to build up, when you look at the larger picture of that, the ecosystem, like, are you in the mattress or the crypto space where a really quick bump will mean a huge deal, or something that won't, you want to factor in the larger picture. That's fantastic.
If I'm in crypto or mattresses right now, and I hold domains that have these interesting, modified TLDs or gTLDs, would I consider selling right now? I probably would. Now would be a hot time to sell. I'd really think about it. As a buyer, I'd probably be more interested in, just because of how I operate personally, right? I like long-term things versus short-term. If you're someone who flips, who buys, builds, flips, that might be great for you. But because I'm a long-term brand builder, I might be thinking more in terms of, I want a brandable domain. I want a .com domain. I want something that's not keyword match, but is memorable, those kinds of things.
As I hear you, Rand, I just hear such, and I know this is who you are in everything I've read. You're very balanced, and you try to look from different perspectives.
Yeah, sure. I think there's a way I want to play things, right? There's a bias I have, but I want to be cognizant of those biases. And I think anytime you're in a two-sided marketplace like domaining, you should be very cognizant, right? But part of your success and failure rests on you being cognizant of other people's biases. So you might say,
Absolutely.
what are you talking about? You're crazy. You should do it this way. No. That's how you want to do it. Yeah. Now think about how other people want to do it. Put yourself in, a totally different brain, and you can imagine how that brain might operate in other ways. And now you can identify, potential disparities in the market and opportunities. And
Yeah. So I have 3 more questions, and then I really would like to begin our startup. We've progressed from like Tessa's random startup to Rand and Tessa's startup.info. We're at the .com now.
Oh, we're crushing it.
We're going places.
All right. I'll bring in the barista.
What are the Silicon Valley euphemisms right now? Oh, we're killing it. We're
crushing it.
Slaying. We're all the things.
Okay, so how do you think voice recognition and voice search could affect domain names and the way we navigate the internet and find things we want to find? Will people be searching more generically or more product specifically?
Right now, all the...
Oh no, he froze.
Action and activity.
Wait, you froze.
Oh, sorry.
Start again.
Right, we heard right now, and then...
Am I better?
Yeah, you're all good now.
All good?
There's like a 3-second pause.
Okay. So right now, the voice search data that we have and the voice search stuff that we've seen suggests that people are interested in 2 things: doing actions or having their voice device, perform actions for them.
Like text Drew.
Call home.
Set timer, right? That kind of stuff, and do things when there are commercial things. It is not just almost always. Right now, it's pretty much always brands and products that have already been purchased. No one says, "Hey Alexa, buy me a new laptop." I don't care which one. No,
so it's for rinse and repeat.
Buy me a new video game system. Book me a vacation somewhere.
Yeah.
No. Right? That hasn't happened. I don't think that's going to happen.
What about, hey Alexa, what's the best laptop in the market?
Even that tends to be something where people do not trust a voice device, and we don't see search queries like that, right? Okay. I think it's especially because Alexa will then say, "I found 17 laptops from cnet.com. I will read you this 700-page article about it." No, shut up. Go back to playing jazz. So that's not how people consume that type of information. However, what you do see a lot of is people saying, "Alexa, order us more paper towels." And then Alexa will say something like, last month.
Like bounty.
Yeah, last month you purchased blah, blah, blah. Do you want blah, blah, blah again? Yes. Okay, transaction done, right? Alexa, order me more trash bags. Alexa, order us, the same Thai takeout we had last night. Okay, right? That type of stuff that's already familiar, that's been done before, that people are comfortable with those. I suspect that's going to be a lot of how voice is done. It's not for discovery. It's for taking familiar actions.
Okay.
As far as how that affects domains, I think, in my mind, that is right now there's an opportunity. If you search Google for paper towels or you search Amazon for paper towels, you might be tempted to buy something different because you see other options. In this world of voice search, you're not even tempted. There's no consideration. You just get what you got before. Yeah. And so I think this doubles down on the power of brand and the power of being the pre-existing and preeminent provider. So, again, the way I see sort of, what a lot of folks call late stage capitalism going is the powerful get more powerful. And so I would urge you to become one of the powerful, right? That's sort of the way that I would put that.
Yeah. So bounty.com gets stronger, bestpapertowels.com, not so much.
Not so much. Bestpapertowels.com doesn't even have a chance to rank. There's no screen for them to rank on. They can't even get in front of your eyeballs.
Yeah.
Right? So unless you can change someone's
mind, a brand that people know and love.
Yeah. Brand, I just called you Brand. That's hilarious. Hey, so Rand, you said about like Spark Toro. You want a name that people can remember. This is basically going to be 5 times more important in the very near future to be able to repeat sales, that it's the initial consumer acquisition is going to be even more important.
Yeah. I think we're going to see a ton more competition for the first transaction, for the first capture, and then less opportunity for competition in future transactions.
Bigger moats.
Yeah, in certain spaces, right? In some spaces, I don't think that'll happen, for example, as much with vacations. I don't think it'll happen as much with, very large with home purchases, for example, right? No one's going to be like, hey, Alexa, call up my real estate agent, get me the same house I got last time.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry, right? That real estate,
cars, flights.
Yeah, cars are mostly immune from that.
So I'm hearing here, I learned when I was researching for this interview, Rand, I learned a new term, availability heuristic, essentially a mental shortcut that relies on immediate examples.
Yep.
I think that's kind of the same thing as cognitive fluency. And I just want to know, are you going to write an article about that, or will you? Have you?
Sure. I'd be happy to write about availability heuristic bias. Okay. Yeah, it's
and your marketing choices, or your brand, specifically your brand choice.
Yeah, right. So availability heuristic bias is this thing where if you have existing examples or associations, your mind will instantly go to them. So if someone says, fantasy movies, right? Like, I don't know about you, but my brain immediately thinks Lord of the Rings, right? Like, that's what I assume. I don't know. Maybe there was some terrible movie with like Vin Diesel a few years ago, but I can't remember what it's called. I'm sure there's been a bad one with Nicolas Cage or two, but apart from that, I'm sort of like, okay, Lord of the Rings. That's my association. I think the other one, I haven't actually seen it, but Game of Thrones, right, is something that people are very familiar. So you have these like preconceived notions when someone says, oh, Amazon's making a new fantasy series. That's where your brain goes, and you have that assumption, right, and those biases. And so when something doesn't fit with that, when they instead make, I don't know, The Fifth Element with Bruce Willis, and you're like, hang on, is that? I didn't think that was that. I thought isn't that something else? I don't get it. Right, and that becomes more challenging for you to overcome, and it tends not to do as well, and those sorts of things.
So when you apply that to marketing, if you buy, if you name your company Spark Toro, it's going to spark ideas and call people and give them like a bullseye. That's what I
mean, or you have no association whatsoever.
Exactly. That was my interpretation.
With what that is. Like, maybe if I try really hard, I could think about like, okay, spark, something to do with, sparking an idea, bull or toro. Wait, maybe that has something to do with
looking for a blank slate,
tuna belly,
a whiteboard that has no association, things where you can get 100% of people's mind share for that particular brand or term, and with no associations. And then you have a clean slate to paint those pictures as you wish.
That is, I think every brand builder should be looking for either something where people already have a bunch of positive associations and they fit really well into that and they leverage that and lean on it, or the complete opposite. Yeah, the whiteboard, the green screen where anything can go.
Mm-hmm. Does Apple fit into the positive association? Like pretend that this is day one, Steve Jobs, I'm going to call my company Apple.
Yeah, I think that's very no association. Technology company called Apple. Okay, that's like a technology company called Amazon. I've heard of the river, but what is that? Okay, it doesn't really have to do with it. You're just doing a thing. You just like the name. Got it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, very good. On May 24th, you tweeted this really good article from journalism.org. It said 24% of web users listen to a podcast in the last month, but there's still no great search engine for podcasts, no great way for audiences or advertisers to find podcasts. The fact that it's grown despite these challenges amazes, I think, the person writing the article, or you?
Amazes me.
It amazes me. Raise your hand. But so here I am doing like a video / podcast. Help! Like, where are the stats? Where is the advertising? Where is the search marketing? What do you see? What do you recommend for now? I mean, if 24% of web users are using this, it's not just, it's helpful that this will benefit this business, but a lot of other people must have this question. And where do you see that in the future with, so we talked about voice search, but all the listening that's happening is changing so much of the environment.
Well, I mean, I think that if you are a podcaster or someone who's building up a channel, you know, in the voice and video, or sorry, in the audio and video worlds, you have a few places where people go and they try and subscribe, right? So iTunes and YouTube and SoundCloud, etc. But there is no great search engine. There's no great discovery engine. There's no great sort of like, hey, I'm really interested in gardening. What are some great gardening podcasts? You know, you search Google and you get a list in text from some blogs, right, that have written, oh, here's some great gardening podcasts.
Yeah, and there's like Google Images. You can search images, or, you know.
Yeah. Didn't Google just announce they're doing something? Aren't they coming into the space?
Google announced that they would be doing more with podcasts. I think we have yet to see exactly what that's going to mean. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it could lead to better discovery, better search. Certainly right now it is a severe problem. And I think even more so for advertisers and those seeking advertisers, right?
Yeah.
So you might have a big audience with your podcast that an advertiser really wants to reach. Neither of you has any idea the other exists, neither the advertiser nor the podcaster. And connecting those people up seems like a problem that needs to be solved. 24% of web users is more people than listen to radio. And buying radio is really easy. And that's why billions of dollars of advertising gets spent on radio, because it's easy. So I would like to see that happen. I want podcasters to be able to make money. So I'm hopeful. So
who's solving this problem? Where do you see this being? Seems like something SparkToro could solve if you have some free time.
Yeah. So here's the challenge. I do agree it's a problem that needs solving, but my background and biases are all to organic marketing. So one of the things that I will absolutely be helping marketers do is discover podcasts that influence their audiences. But SparkToro won't be trying to provide that sort of like two-sided marketplace where podcasters can put up their publications and advertisers can try and, you know, connect and bid with them. That's just not a space that I'm passionate about and that I have experience in. But for some enterprising entrepreneur, I think it's a hell of an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Agreed. I want to just take that clip and tweet it like daily until someone does it.
Let's go, people. What are you even doing? Building your skateboards and your machines.
Yeah. Failing your exam questions about the Carter administration. Nice. Okay. Let's wrap it up. I feel like the best way to wrap it up, Rand, is throw out some thoughts on global positioning for a brand, how that relates to SEO, marketing, and domain names. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of global is a tough one, because I think that the advice that I usually give of you should have a single domain name and put all of your effort into that has a caveat when you are trying to go global, because you need to localize both in languages and in regions and countries. And so that often means getting your hands on a lot of different domains with a lot of TLD extensions. usually the classic country code ones. So that trademarks can absolutely help, right? And registering your trademark in lots of different countries, which is something I just did with SparkToro, for example. It's a little pricey and a little bit of a pain in the butt, but oftentimes your lawyer's office can handle that. And we're talking I think for us all in, it was like 10K, maybe 12K to register in the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and
EU.
South Africa.
Are you targeting Asia? So much activity there.
So we might target Asia in the future, but we wanted to have the trademark in English language speaking countries. Yeah. That's sort of where that matters the most for us right now.
Yeah.
So as far as the rest goes, I'll give you an example. So when we bought Moz.com, we switched from SEO Moz to Moz, right? We changed our brand name. And that was, I think, $500,000, maybe a little bit more than that, right? For that domain, which I think actually was a steal. I think that person probably could have charged us $750, even $900, and we probably would have had to pay up somewhere around $1 million. We probably would have said no, and someone else would have gotten it, but it still probably would have been worthwhile for whoever did.
Yeah.
And I think that the cost of then going out and the concern of going out and saying, okay, how do we get moz.de? How do we get moz.co.uk? How do we get moz.ru or whatever it is?
Yeah.
That's a real pain too. Thankfully, Moz is an internet-centric business, and so .com can be our sort of global positioning. But when you are localizing, right, when you're trying to go very regional, and hey, we want to reach the French market is a great example. Very hard to target without localization, without a lot of localization.
Yeah.
So just prepare for that.
Yeah, good to know. So actually yesterday is your anniversary of buying Moz.com, I noticed. So you had SEOmoz.org started up in 2003.
Yep.
In 2013, 10 years later, and it makes sense that, in the beginning you said you're, telling debt collectors that you didn't know who Rand Fishkin was. So you're not going to have the money to buy a 3-letter .com, but years later you got to pay a price because everybody already knows that brand, that name. So now SparkToro, you started off differently, right from the bat, and you won't have to change. You ever see you going up to spark.com or something? Or
I could potentially see it in a very long-term future. I like SparkToro because it sort of fits all the rules. The thing that I don't love about spark.com is just that the word spark is already something that lots of people look for, know about it. So it's not a terrible.
Particularly pertaining to what you do. It's
I really do like the uniqueness of being able to say. So, for example, like one of my tips that I put this both in the book and in the blog post, Andrew, that you read, was I love
oh no, we lost him again.
Right. So when I started SparkToro, if I typed SparkToro, sorry, my connection is getting unstable for some reason.
You're back.
Okay. If I typed SparkToro into Google, 0 results. I mean, in quotes, right? Because Google would try and say like, oh, well, this page has spark plugs and a lawnmower from Toro. Like, okay. Right. But that was something that I really, really wanted, because I knew that every single mention of SparkToro would be about us.
That's
and I
very
think that can be a beautiful thing for the brand.
Yeah, very cool. All right, thanks. If you could have bought this is seriously it. If you could have bought one domain name in 1991, what would you have bought?
Ooh.
On speculation or for business, either way, you get one domain.
Or personal, if you have a passion you're just dying to tell us all about.
The field is open. You can have any domain in the world you want. What domain do you take?
I know your top choice might be Rand and Tess's startup.com still.
Pretty good domain. Okay, I think for personal passion, and sort of like things that I love and that I think could work. Pasta, I might have bought pasta.com, or whiskey. The Scottish correct spelling, not the American with an E crap.
We've got the one with an E for sale right now.
Oh, do you really? I mean, some bourbon lover out there is going to go crazy.
Yeah.
They're going to have field day. Let's see. If it was purely for financial purposes, I think I mean, it's salacious to say, but I probably would have bought something in the adult space, because that industry tends to be that's where things like begin. Lots of things start there. So I don't know, something like porn.com would probably be a good investment in 1991. And
it definitely would.
That. You tell no one where you got your $10 million from, right?
Yeah, I think I don't know if the sale price of porn.com was public or not. Porno.com sold last year for $8.8888 million.
Wow.
So you were pretty close with your 10 million number.
Yeah.
Porn.com is worth considerably more than porno. And so I would imagine that was an 8-digit sale.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just, it's not a field that I have a lot of interest in, but or even a lot of knowledge about, but I do recognize, like a lot of technologists do, that it tends to be, a lot of first leaps happen there.
Online payments, video streaming.
Yeah.
All of it comes.
Online commerce, right? All this type of stuff. And so I think that's probably from a pure financial motivation, like, okay, well, let me just noodle on this. All right. Yeah, that probably makes sense.
That's actually, I just learned something new about porn today. I didn't realize that a lot of new technology happens there, and that actually makes sense because they're never going to run out of customers. There's so much money in the space that they can afford to really try new things. Oh,
well, they used to. Now there's not a lot of money in the space. Now it's all free, so they pay anymore.
I was reading an article about that, like the shift from, like this huge industry sort of kind of overnight torn apart, and a lot of the people who make their living in it having a really tough time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right for disruption. There's something coming there. There's something going to happen in that industry that will create a new revolution. But anyways, we don't need to spend a lot of time.
I hope the same is true in a lot of industries, right? I mean, I worry significantly about news. I think that's an industry where the dollars have all drained to Google and Facebook, and someone needs to create something that gives the news business a way to make revenue again, so that we can get high quality news again.
I can't believe you said that. I wrote an article on Media Options site. I don't know if you remember, Drew, about when Bezos bought, what did he buy? The Washington Post.
Washington Post, yep.
And I was like, what's he going to do? I mean, this is what he really specializes in. You buy something that's an industry that can't figure itself out, and he built Amazon. Do you have any idea of what you think, or any insights of where you think that might go? Now, I mean, really, so to speak, our interview is over, and now we're just shooting shit. But
no. So a few years ago, I would have guessed that he was going to try and revolutionize the news subscription business, but what's happened so far seems very incremental to me.
Yeah. I think he bought it for personal reasons. I don't think that it was a big, broad, strategic business thing. I think it was really personal.
Yeah, I have a sense, I think I agree with Andrew. I have the sense that Bezos is not applying the same sorts of rigor and structure and approach to the Washington Post that he did to Amazon, which in some ways maybe is a good thing, right? Because the Washington Post has been a breath of fresh air, and they have produced some of the best reporting of the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
It hasn't had the distribution that you would hope it would have, but I don't know. Hard to say.
Interesting.
It's all because Matt Mullenweg beat him to WP.com.
Good on Matt. All right, well, you guys, this was super fun and awesome. I apologize. I have a meeting about to start. So.
Absolutely, no problem. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We'll let you know when it's going to be published. We hope you can share it with your audience, as we will, and maybe we can do it again sometime. Thank you.
Awesome. Look forward to it. All right,
Bye,
take care.
Marianne. Thanks.
Cheers.